I do want to jump to Kim, actually, to hear from you. So, as a person who recently graduated from a school here in Clark County, you have some experience you can share with us. So, I would love to start by asking you to share about your experiences or your friends' experiences with sex ed at schools here in our area. Maybe some things you wish had been different, or what did you really appreciate?
Okay, that's great. So actually, so my first year of high school, I didn't attend any Clark County like public schools. But that's where I learned my sex ed. But like my friends that went to like all the public schools, when they learned sex ed, they never learned about or sometimes they didn't even have sex ed in their health classes, but they never learned about affirmative consent. And with affirmative consent, like with comprehensive sex ed, it actually really teaches a lot about like abstinence. Like the campus teacher was talking about, like it only like helps prevent like unwanted situations and like helps protect and keep people safe. And so that's one thing that I wish was different, that they actually taught that and they made it mandatory like they're going to do now. And the thing that I appreciated the most from like my friends, like, well, I never received it, so I can't really say, but from my friends' experiences, it was never really positive or negative. It was just kind of like they either got it or they didn't get it. And then when they got it, it was never very comprehensive or inclusive. So yeah.
Yeah, so I'm curious, what have been maybe some of the impacts for folks who weren't able to get sex ed at all, or who weren't able to get comprehensive sex ed? Have folks in your community, your friends, talked about sort of how that impacted them?
Yeah. So for my cultural upbringing and then for my lack of sex ed, it was just like really difficult to talk about because it was taboo and it never seemed like something natural or respectable to talk about, just because from my family, like I come from an immigrant family, I'm Asian, and so it's just like it's just seen as really like disrespectful to talk about, and like not knowing like the things that I could have known from sex ed. I was put in a lot of unfortunate situations, which did lead me to being sexually assaulted, and actually several of my friends, and it's actually really common for women and to be like sexually assaulted. And so because of their lack of understanding from sex ed, like they just didn't really understand what affirmative consent was, or like what sexual coercion was, or like sexual abuse. And like for me, because I never had sex ed, I had to like Google it. And unfortunately, a lot of my friends had to have those experiences too, where they had to learn from unfortunate events, or they were just like Googling on the internet, but sometimes it's like really negative or it's like misinformation. So it was really confusing for them.
Yeah, well, and thank you for sharing your story. And I'm so sorry that that happened, and I'm sorry that happened to your friends. And I really appreciate you being here to be an advocate and speak to the importance of this. Um, I know that you have talked with other groups, other community members about why you support things like consent-based comprehensive sex ed. If you were talking to a parent or another person in our community who maybe was concerned about their child receiving some LGBTQ inclusive comprehensive sex ed, what might you say to them? What might you share with them to help kind of to shift that thinking for them?
I would just say that cultivating an environment where we're very inclusive and friendly towards like everybody, like it just makes it safer for people. And like when you all understand each other, it just makes the misinformation and the confusion less. And it's like it only adds more value, and like it benefits like how people interact with each other, and it just like kills like the stigma. And I would just say ignorance is not bliss. It's definitely really dangerous and it can lead to a lot of violence. And so when people don't have the information, they jump to conclusions and they don't always make the most informed decisions based on the information that they have. Also, I think every child deserves to be protected, like regardless of their sexual orientation. Like nobody should take away somebody's rights to learn. Everybody should have access to being sexual education.